What do I do with my hands? George, Roop, what's up, brother? Thank you for doing this, man. So, dude, we started this conversation like 20 minutes ago. I just looked at my phone and like we had so many moments where I was like, let's save it, save it, save it. Fascinating individual, man. But we were talking a lot about your journey through MMA and your journey as a human being, where you came from, and all that stuff. And so I'm very excited to share that story with you. Number one, because I think that all of us in Tucson had that thing where, especially back in the day, where it wasn't a lot of talent coming out of Tucson or Arizona, period. And then there's George, and George is, he's fighting here, and he won this belt, and then he's over here, and he's about to make it to the UFC. So I think all of us were starting to cheer. All of us that were involved in martial arts in one way or another, we were excited to start seeing a talent grown here in Tucson that started to have a bit successful, because it showed that the coaching was here in Tucson to start making a product like you and start making it at the highest level, like in the UFC, man. So all of us were cheering, man. We were watching your fight. We were excited. Our heart broke when you lost, or we were cheering when you won. So and Tucson is small, dude. Like we have so many friends that 6 degrees of separation. Like I know two guys that know you, and before you and I met, two guys that knew me, and it was always cool, man. We're always kind of like in the same circle, like when you were fighting Rage in the cage and stuff. We were always there, and it was super cool, man, to watch that group of guys always forging forward, man. So tell us a little bit about yourself, man. Like we were talking about, you come from a small family,
Yeah, I
and
do.
now you have a clan.
Yeah, we do. We have a clan. We have 5 kids. And responsibly have 5 kids. So that was important, and that's where I hold my value. I don't hold my value is being a UFC fighter. I don't hold my value in what kind of car I drive and what kind of clothes I wear, my appearance, my materialistic things. I hold my value in my family. MMA fans, they're like your ex-girlfriend. They love you when you're hot, and they love to kick you when you're down, man.
Right, exactly. Yeah. What have you done for me lately? That is just the thing about MMA, man. It's MMA. It's like the fighter shelf. To me, I've always believed that it's 5 years. Number one, because I do believe that a fighter will peak for 5 years and he's untouchable. And then after that, it's just, think about it this way. I mean, you hit 20, you're 25. By the time you hit 30, the next 25-year-old kid is about to start peaking, and it just happens,
Right, and we talked a little bit about it, earlier too. Is that the sport's evolving? It's evolved more over the last 10 years than it has in thousands of years. So you do have these, these cats training since they're 13, 12 years old nowadays. And I mean, I think I started training martial arts when I was 22, 23. I got to the UFC, I think 3 years after I started training.
Right.
I done some little bit of wrestling in high school, a little bit of traditional karate, and I know you're saying everybody is watching me, and I started making it to that big stage. I'm grateful for that, and I got lucky to actually get there. There's a lot of fighters here in Tucson, even they're better than I was. They're a lot better than me. They just didn't get the opportunity to be able to compete at that highest level. What I did do is, once I got to that highest level, I worked really hard. I worked my ass off, and that's where I feel like longevity was prosperity for me.
You were in that group of guys that were fighting at the local level, like in the local MMA shows. What do you think put you on the radar for the UFC? Was it just your style? Was it just your personality, your ability to click with the public?
Yeah, it's hard to say. I never did a lot of public stuff. I know I really tried. That's what you try to do when you're a local fighter trying to come up. I just think I got lucky. My story of getting on the Ultimate Fighter show is actually really cool. I had a fight in Denver. And so let me back up a little bit. I was fighting Rage in the Cage for about a year and a half. And I have a man named Dominic Alexander. Changed my life completely as a man, as an athlete. And he says, okay, let's set a goal. In 1 year from now, we're going to be fighting on a bigger stage outside of Arizona, because we were kind of confined to Rage in the Cage, fighting on the same shows, local Arizona circuit. We're like, let's get out of Arizona and fight. And that was the goal within 1 year. So I ended up having a big fight up in Denver. And it was about 7-8 months after we made this commitment of a year. So we're like, okay, we made it to the, we made it outside the Arizona circuit, goal accomplished. Well, a couple weeks before my fight, I'm cutting weight. I'm training for, at this time, the most important fight of my life. The guy's undefeated. He's a local stud up in Denver. Dominic comes up and tells me, hey, I want you to go try out for the Ultimate Fighter show. I was like, I can't do that, man. It's on Wednesday. My fight is on Saturday in Denver, and the tryouts were in Boston. I was like, I don't have no money, man. I don't have no money to go buy a plane ticket, and how am I supposed to get there? I was like, the chances of me making it on the Ultimate Fighter show? He told me, well, that's too bad. I already bought your plane ticket.
Holy shit, you're going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's like, I already bought your plane ticket. I got your hotel room up there for you. I was like, but I have to weigh in on Friday. These tryouts are on Wednesday. He says, yeah, I got your plane ticket to Denver, and you're going to make it to weigh-ins and make it to that fight as well. So I ended up going and trying out, thousands of people, and
no shit.
Yeah, and I just.
What do those tryouts look like? So is it just really truly like just thousands of people? And
yes, and there's no rhyme or reason. The best guy does not get picked.
Right.
Like I said, there were many other better athletes than me there.
Right.
Many better MMA, jiu-jitsu players, kickboxers, a lot better than I was. So how it works is you get 1 minute. It starts with the grappling session. You get 1 minute of grappling. They lock you up with the guy, and they evaluate you. They do it in about a group of 5 people. They set them out on a mat. You have Dana White, Sean Shelby, Joe Silva. And then you have the guy who owns Tough Guy Productions, which is the Ultimate Fighter show, and they kind of Craig Pilgrim is his name, and they just evaluate you. Well, I got locked up. I'm cutting to 145 pounds for my fight. Excuse me, and I get locked up with a huge guy. This guy has to be like 195 pounds. There's no way he's even.
Was it just based on your height? They were like, that's close enough.
Yeah, no, it's just they randomly select you and everything. So the guy submitted me. He armbarred me within that first minute, and then I just went after him right after that. I ended up making it through that round, though. I think they liked my aggressiveness is what they liked. And they cut about half of the people right there. So just to make it past that round is, it's nice. And then you go to the striking rounds, another minute. You go through that, and then if you make it past the striking round, they narrow down to 10 people. And then you go to an interview process, and you kind of sit down at a table, you talk to them. And of course,
do they start setting up cameras to see how you react to the camera and all that? Or?
Yeah, there were cameras there, and I don't know if it was for them to go back on it, and kind of look at it. But I was kind of prepared for that. I'm not naturally a showsman. I don't naturally speak as well as as a lot of people who've promoted themselves well. So I had some good lines that I was going to
dialogue
use.
That you were going to
So I had it dialed in, and at that day and age, I was I'm 6'1", 155 pounds. That is a very tall lightweight, because the UFC only had lightweight, although I was weighing like 149 pounds.
Jesus.
So and I got through the interview phase, and I flew out to Denver, weighed in, made weight, and then I was having my dinner after most fighters weigh in, and I got the call from the UFC the night before my fight, and they said, hey, we'd like you to come back up to Vegas, and we want to let you know we're going to be watching your fight tomorrow.
Shit.
So we'd like you to come up to Vegas. We'd like to do another interview for the Ultimate Fighter show. Well, I went in there the next day, knocked the guy out in 13 seconds.
Damn, right.
And
that's so awesome, man.
Yeah, man. Got up to Vegas, and it was kind of, all downhill from there.
That's so beautiful, man. That's so beautiful. So, but that's awesome. That's also beautiful, man. I'm a firm believer, man. Good things happen to good people, man. And I think that when you're truly fulfilling or going after your path, your dream, whatever it is, man, the universe will put things and people in your path to make things happen. When we're trying to resist our own greatness, whatever it is, when we're trying to resist our own greatness is when we encounter difficulty in our lives. But when you're truly trying to fulfill your passion, whatever it is, the universe will set up these things, man, for you to be successful. Like you said, like your buddy said, hey, I got your airplane tickets, man. Focus on this,
Yeah.
you know? So, dude, that's phenomenal, man. So bringing it back down to Tucson, man, when we're talking about training in Tucson and we're talking about the pool of talent in Tucson, and I was telling you a story where, like me growing up, so this is like 94, 95, 96. I was doing like kickboxing and karate, and I was winning these tournaments. And I was 16, so I forget what year that was, but I won the grand champion in the grand championship. And this guy was started training with us. He had been in Japan. He had these cool pictures, man, of him, with in this training camps and posing. And so I went up to him and I said, hey, do I have talent? And the guy smiles, and the guy goes, yeah. And that put a smile on my face, man. I'm like, okay, what's next? What do I need to do? And the guy kills it for me right there. He tells me, you have to move. He goes, nobody's looking at Tucson. Nobody's looking at Arizona for talent. You have talent, you're going to lose a bit if you stay here. And I think I quit training like about a week later. It's just, I wasn't going to abandon my mother. I was a source of income for the family already as a young immigrant. So it killed it for me. And it wasn't until I found jiu-jitsu that passion sparked up again. But you were talking about how that same thing happened to you, where at some point somebody told you, hey, you have to move to Vegas. That's where the training is. That's where the training partners are. But you went full circle and you actually found that Tucson was a better match for you. Talk to us about that, man. What was that conversation like, and what happened?
Yeah, kind of same thing, same concept you had. Same thing happened to me. The same guy, Dominic, who was my mentor at the time. And going back to the Ultimate Fighter tryouts, I had told Dominic, I was, you're spending all this money to fly me out there, get me to Denver. Do you know what the chances are of me even making it on the Ultimate Fighter show? And he's like, yeah, I know they're not good, but you have to at least know that you at least tried.
That you did it. That
you
tried
to accomplish your dream, man. So it's one thing that's always been burnt into my mind. So he told me when I got back from the Ultimate Fighter show, he's like, look, man, you gotta go where the training is. You need to move up to Las Vegas. You need to make it happen up there. And this is somebody that I really believed in. And my wife and I, we packed up our bags and we moved up to Las Vegas, and
Wow.
we lived there for about a year and a half. And I got great training in. I trained with who I believe is the best jiu-jitsu coach in the world. To this day, I've never had a better jiu-jitsu coach, Robert Drysdale. He's just amazing. And I think jiu-jitsu is some things work for people, some things don't work for people. There's moves that are going to work for certain body types that aren't going to work for other body types. And Robert Drysdale, I believe, is really good at breaking that down.
Picking that up, right?
Yes,
yeah.
And he just breaks it down really well. I also linked up with Team Tompkins when I was out there. They had a lot of guys on their squad, my weight class, actually bigger than me, but people assumed I was bigger because I'm tall.
Right.
But they were much more dense than I was. Good training squad, got great development out there. And what it really helped me with was to know how to put in those 2-a-days, because I had no distractions. And that's what really helped me with. But come full circle, I realized, I think we need to move back. My wife and I, we were pregnant, and we were like, let's move back home to the family.
Wow.
And when we got back home, I realized that this is the best place actually for me. And I'd already came down here for a couple camps because I got matched up with a couple training partners. They're already training training that I was actually training with on a day-to-day. So
right.
I fly down here and
had to separate that, right? Exactly, because they're watching you.
Yeah, and they understand your tendencies and what what you're gonna do. And when I got back to Tucson, I realized that I had such a good support system from the community, from people I didn't even know, but they were invested in me. They were able to watch me and kind of live through me, and they just invested so much, man, into me. I could go to any gym I wanted in Tucson, and they would welcome me with open arms. What do you need, Roop? What do you need? And I just really got really focused, detailed work, whereas when you're up in Vegas, you're training with a big camp, you kind of just going through the motions. When I came back to Tucson, you have very specific game plan. You know, I had guys going and studying my opponents. Hey, let's try this. This could work. He likes to hit this switch a lot.
In the bigger camp, you're just kind of like part of the herd. Is just you're one of 1,000. Over here, it's like you're one of 5.
Yes.
And you have a fight coming up, so let's focus on you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that, man.
Yeah, and that's exactly how I saw it. Is, you know, people were like, let's focus on Roop. They'd really help me out, and I really believe that that's what helped me sustain, you know, competing at the highest level so long.
For so long, yeah.
A lot of people, you see it in a lot of professional athletes, actually. I made it to the NFL, baby. I made it to the UFC. And their careers are so short-lived because they become complacent.
Right.
So there were, once again, I always say it, there's so many, there was so many better, you know, fighters that deserved to be in the UFC, even here from Tucson. But what I did when I got that opportunity is I worked my ass off. You know, there was nobody that outworked me. There was nobody that put in the hours and the sweat that I put in.
I think there's a couple of components. And number one, I don't think you're taking credit of it, but I know a story about you, man. Somebody else told me this story. You've never told me the story. I've never shared the story, but I love that story about you. But first, let's talk about I heard this story about the NFL, and this is from a buddy of mine that was a professional NFL player. And the way he described it to me is when you're in college, everybody wants to see you make it. You're playing college football, and you have a community of trainers and teachers that are looking to develop you into what's going to make it to the NFL. He said from the second you make it to the NFL, they're looking for your replacement, like that.
Ooh, I like that.
Done. You go from a culture of let's do whatever it takes to see you succeed and get there, to when you get there, you're falling behind a second. I'm already looking for the guy that can hit that second that you're not hitting. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And I think it's the same thing with the UFC, man. It's like I think that those smaller shows are there to see you develop. Your coaches and even the promoters to a certain degree at the smaller show, they want to pair you up with. They don't want to put you with a guy that's 13-0 if you're 2-0. You know, they want to see you grow. That's how those matches should happen. They want to see you grow as a fighter, understanding that they want you to make it to that big show. Nobody wants to keep you the reigning champion of Rage in the Cage for 30 years. You know, they want to see you succeed and make it up there. But once you make it there, it's like the UFC is like, hey, you're a second late, you know? So, but this is a story, man, and it's a funny story because it's the work ethic that I learned very young. And my story was when I was wrestling in Hermosillo, I would go and do my real wrestling, you know, collegiate wrestling, freestyle, and then across the street was professional wrestling. So we were talking about like our upbringing. I come from a broken family where at 12 years old, man, I'm looking at my parents going, you guys don't have your shit together. And in a few years, I'm on my own. Like there's no net, this is not an environment where I'm going to grow. It's an environment where eventually the castle falls and what's left is me and what I'm able to assume, you know, to accomplish. So I started hitting those pro wrestling camps. And what I realized was the really good guys that were wrestling and going to Japan already, you know, doing some of those matches and making money, was they had a work ethic where they were never tired. You never heard them complain. They were never tired. They were never sore. They were never hungry or thirsty. An hour would go by before they drank water. So I saw that and I said, okay, I'm going to model myself after this guy. So me being a big kid, I could be their body to bump against, you know. So where the other guys would be like, I'm tired. What about you, kid? Nope, let's go. I'm ready. So I was never tired. So this guy started grabbing me and, all right, kid, let me show you something, you know. But the story about you is you were at a local gym and there's a bunch of people that were wrestling, and then you came in and you started wrestling with all of them. And you were scrapping with every single one of them. And this practice went on for over an hour, and everybody just kind of like wormed their way over to a wall, you know, and you're tired. You're just kind of like, fuck, I'm tired. And you were in the center bouncing let's go one more, and not in a hostile way, like fucking pound your chest, but is I need more work. I need to put in more work, and you grab the dude. You might know who this is, but you grab the dude who's super talented and pulled him off the wall by the leg, and you just jumped on him. You pounced on him, and then that guy's like, "Oh, motherfucker!" And you guys started fighting. So this dude told me that story, man. And when he told me that story, it was a story of what separates you from the rest, and is that work ethic. What everybody's tired, you're not. I know you are, but this is not the time. This is not the time to be tired or thirsty or hurt. It's that work ethic, man. So I think that's what separates you from the rest, man. Because growing up around fighters, man, it's like, hey, why are you not here today? Oh, we had a tough workout yesterday, man. I'm sore.
Oh yeah.
We're all sore, dude.
Yeah, and work ethic is huge. And I believe that I got a lot of my work ethic from wrestling in school, from my upbringing. I mean, it wasn't easy. So you had to have the work ethic. If I wanted wrestling shoes, I had to go mow lawns, clean yards. If I wanted to play Pop Warner football, I had to make that happen. So I always knew from a young age, man. I just developed that work ethic, and I don't know if I actually consciously even thought of it or if I just kind of developed it. And yeah, I've done that to many people where I've been like, yeah, I need more work.
I need more work. Yeah.
And that gym that the first gym that I started at here in Tucson, the Ultima, is what it was called, man. And I'll tell you what, those guys, they probably didn't like me. I was spastic as hell, aggressive, just like most white belts. You can probably get injured from a white belt a lot easier
faster
than
you
can more advanced belts, because they're sporadic and.
But they're hungry, man. I love that. I love when I get somebody that comes in and just is hungry for success, hungry for greatness. I don't know what I'm going to be great at, but I want to be great. And when I get people that come in through the door, so I love that. But I also love when I meet people in general, that they just have that hunger for greatness, that is like, yeah, man, I fucking love that. Keep chasing that, whatever that is, And a lot of times, me being older now, they start coming up to you and asking you for advice. Oh, should I do this? I'm like, yeah, chase your fucking dream,
Yeah.
Starbucks will be waiting for you, should your dream not pan, should your dream not pan out. But you only have that small window to go chase that dream.
That's right. Yeah. Going back to the Ultimate Fighter show, I was working as a pharmacy technician. I was going to school, starting to get my prereqs done, trying to, I wanted to be a pharmacist is what I wanted to do. And I was starting to get there. I was starting to get some momentum on that side, but I always knew. I always, ever since I was a little kid watching the old UFCs, I knew that I wanted to be a fighter. I knew that I knew that I was going to fight. So I believe in a lot in visualization. I believe in a lot in positive self-talk, in not like telling myself good things. And I never even realized what I was doing, and I never realized what self-talk and positive thinking and almost manifesting in your mind. I never even knew what that stuff was until I became older and kind of started to understand it a little bit better. But I looking back, I always knew I was gonna be a fighter. I always had my winning formulas, and that's what I actually call them in life, is winning formulas. And I knew that MMA was going to be one of my winning formulas in life. And so I was very excited, but I wasn't extremely surprised that I actually made it there, because I always saw myself, going to the UFC.
You were going to put in the work. You were going to put in the work, and that was going to be an outcome. That's phenomenal, man. That's so awesome, dude. But let's talk about the training, man. So the training was, again, like you and I were talking about, we come from the old school way of training where we didn't really know how to train. And us being the brand new students, you put your full trust on your trainer. But then now being trainers ourselves and older, you realize that a lot of times it was just them trying to figure out how to get the conditioning and the rounds and everything else. But back then, we didn't know about Tabata, 20 seconds on, 10 seconds off, positional drilling, how often we should be sparring and all this stuff. So what ended up happening is we ended up scrapping every single day. we just roll fucking hard every single time.
That's right.
And there was no positional drilling or seeking like a specific thing. It was just banging it out, day in, day out. And that cuts life from your fight life. That starts taking time away from it. And we have injuries they're lingering injuries that are a result of that formula. Whereas today you hear fighters talk about, we're talking about fighters now that don't even spar more than once a week. If, your elite guys might not be sparring more than, once a week, twice a week, and then that's it.
Agreed.
But you were saying that you were scrapping every day, morning and night.
Yeah, twice a day. That's one thing I was always there. I always done. I was in the gym. I really treated it like a 6 to 8 hour a day job. I was in the gym. And, I take that back. I didn't treat it like a 6 to 8 hour a day job. I treated it like a 24-hour a day job. I never, whenever I got the call for a fight, ever since even Rage in the Cage, I never put one bad thing in my body. Not one piece of fast food. Every single fight. So I can always look back at my fighting
ready.
career and know that I did everything in my power. Not one sip of alcohol. Anything else, anything else. I never consumed anything, man. No cannabis ever I ever consumed in my not one fight. So I did it. I put all my eggs into one basket and I gave it my very best, for each training camp. The results weren't always, the best. But I can always look back at it and know that I did everything right, man.
You have to be satisfied, absolutely.
I'm very
to be
grateful
to be
for that.
in the rosters that you were in. It's an achievement on its own. I consider like making it to the rosters that you were in to say you were part of that 10% of the population of the world that are one of the most dangerous motherfuckers in the world. You made it to that roster. You're 10%. You're top 10%. Your body and your mind performs to that level that George, you don't get to play with these guys because you're going to kill them. You belong over here. And that's a huge accomplishment. But that's truly what that accomplishment means. It's just you get to that point. But how often you guys were sparring every day, throwing head kicks and punches and everything else. So you were saying, who was the first person to wise up? And was there a moment? Was there something that said, hey guys, maybe we shouldn't be doing this every single day? Maybe we shouldn't be sparring every single day? Maybe more back work, more mid work?
Yeah, Joey Rivera he always was telling us, you guys, don't spar today. Don't spar today.
You guys like, psst.
We never listened.
Yeah, no.
We never listened to him. And in hindsight, which is life in general, everything in life is hindsight, man.
Right.
And, of course, I wish I'd have listened a lot earlier. But no, we never believed, as we were talking about earlier, when I grappled, we didn't believe in grappling without throwing strikes. You're taking a lot of damage, a lot of head trauma, but you're young, you can take it at that point.
Right.
Those are the wars in those gyms, that it does take away, on the later end. So yeah, we were banging every single day. I don't know if there came a point where I was just like, it clicked, for me. Unfortunately, I think where it was my very last camp is where I had the best camp of my entire life. It was my last camp. I fought in the Road FC, and I let Joey kind of run that camp for me. And we took away a lot of contact. I never went into a fight so healthy, so confident. The outcome was one of the worst outcomes with the worst injuries I've ever had. But there's no doubt in my mind that would have been the best performance that I ever
Outside
had.
of that injury, that was the best performance.
It would have been, yes. And there's no doubt in my mind. I was never so confident. It was a great camp, and it was because I had the confidence. I wasn't in the gym just banging every day. I cut my sparring down to once, maybe sometimes twice a week. And I think when fighters spar, it's more of like a confidence thing. They're like, I just want to know that I can do this for
this amount. Yeah, that can withstand the fury of the fight. Yeah. What was talking about mindset? So your last fight was, Joey ran it, and it was probably, like you said, like one of the best camps, and you feel super confident, like your injuries were not there in this one. When you fought Bulls in WC, what was that camp like? Because it was a very different George Roop that showed up to that one.
It was, yeah. I feel like some of my losses. So let's put it this way too. In MMA, the best guy doesn't always win.
Right.
You know, that's just how it is. It's controlled chaos.
It's the dynamics, man. It's like the 5-ounce gloves, and it's like, you know, with boxing, the blocking. It's like something that people don't understand the dynamics of MMA. In boxing, you turn that glove sideways, and it's this is my hand, but the glove is here and here, and I put it up to my face, and that covers my entire face. Yeah. That's why this blocks in boxing work. In MMA, I do this. This is open, and this is where those shots come in. And you take that punch, man, with that little fight. It's a clean punch, and it's knocking you out, or it's cutting you.
Yeah, you know? It does. It definitely does a lot of damage. And you know, for the Brian Bowles fight, another one, really great camp. I did go into that camp with a lot of injuries, but where I really excelled there was my mental game, you know, and my losses, I believe that almost all of my losses are mental losses. I don't think they were
a technical loss.
I don't think they were physical. There were some technical, you know, flaws. Cub Swanson fight was definitely a technical flaw, but that goes back to the mental, you know, the mental game. Is if I could have had a little more, you know, intelligence in preparing for the fight, I could have cleaned that up. Brian Bowles fight, I went into with injuries, of course, as well, but I was just so mentally prepared, motivated, and some nights you perform, man, and other nights, you know, I'm a very I analyze everything. I'm a deep thinker, and sometimes I get stuck in my own head, and I think that's where I defeat myself sometimes when I get stuck in my head.
Right.
So in the Brian Bowles fight, I was just able to flow freely and take the fight as it comes. And I wish I kind of was able to take that learning experience and kind of make it, you know, roll out into other fights. But you know, you live and you learn.
Yeah, you live and you learn, man. And then the fight where people just couldn't get enough of you, man, the Korean Zombie, right? Because this kid had just had a tremendous fight of just, I mean, the nickname came from his ability to just keep coming forward, taking shots, you know, like a Korean Zombie. And you put him out. Nobody had ever done that.
Yeah, and you know, a lot of people, of course, that's going to be the fight that I'm always known for is the Korean Zombie. The only guy to put.
For me, it'll be the Bulls fight.
So,
for me, it'll be the Bulls.
Me too.
Because
and my best performances are the Brian Bowles fights, the Brian Bowles fight. The Josh Grisby fight was another great performance for me, and one of not the prettiest fights, but another great performance for me was the Ruben Duran fight. Because that kid was good, man. He was really strong. I went in there very prepared for him, and he gave me all I could handle, I must say. But those are the fights where I feel like I performed really great. The Korean Zombie fight, I knew I was going to win that fight. I asked for that fight. I begged for that fight.
Really? What did you see something where you're like, okay, this is a weakness that I can explore in this matchup? Because matchups make fights.
They do.
They do. And you just saw that and you're like, okay, I can clearly take this kid.
I knew I was going to beat him. I knew I was going to steal it. I was like, this is the perfect fight for me.
And was it the head kick that was planned as a finishing move, or was it just a combination of things?
It wasn't planned to even finish him. That just kind of came. But I knew I was going to finish him in the first round. After the first round was over, I was like, I'm going to finish this guy. You know, I knew that crazy. Once I was just stinging him with the wasp and the jab, and I knew that you know, I was landing those shots, and I felt that I was going to finish him even throughout my training camp. I just knew this was such a good fight. He actually pulled out of that fight, and Sean Shelby had asked me, well, do you want me to get you another opponent, or would you like to wait a couple months and put that fight on? I wanted that fight so bad because he had all that thunder, man. And
right, yeah,
I knew I was going to steal that thunder, and I just knew my style. Like, so a lot of people, he's the Korean Zombie. He can have whatever nickname he wants.
Right. You're not fighting the nickname. You're fighting the man.
Yeah. Yes. Right. And everybody's human.
Right.
People aren't zombies. I mean, I have never seen a zombie, and I mean, I like the idea of zombies.
I pray for it every morning, dude. Every morning I open my eyes and just let it be the day where I can just start shooting motherfuckers in the face. And then I wake up and everybody's happy. My wife's happy. My kids are happy. I'm like, fuck.
And I knew.
But maybe tomorrow.
Yeah, maybe.
You want to meet up here? We'll bring our guns. We'll
right?
just
sit on the roof, pick them off.
Yeah.
I knew, man. You know, I'm a realist. I was like, he is a human being, is what he is.
Right.
Everybody can be knocked out. If he walks forward with me with his hands down like
He's
that,
getting dropped.
he's going down. Yeah, he's going down like a blonde on prom night, baby. You know?
Woo! And that's down, dude. What's up with your head kick? So growing up throwing kicks, I've always flexed my foot. Always flex my foot, and I've kicked with the right part, you know, kick with the shin just above the ankle and all that stuff. You throw that kick flexing your toes.
Yeah.
And I cringe at the sight of your kick every time. I understand it because it's a different way of flexing the foot. Did you ever like break your toes, jam your toes? Do you throw it with like knowing you're throwing it like that, or is that something that you play with the flexing of your toes?
It was natural. I done taekwondo when I was a little kid, and that's where I got that from. And that left kick, that's always that's my best weapon. And I throw other kicks, you know. Of course, I throw my leg kicks differently. I throw them more Muay Thai style.
Right.
But I was always really good with that left kick because I don't really switch. I just kind of bring it up and snap that.
Yeah,
shit.
there's no. I've watched fights, man. There's no telltale.
Yeah.
And that's what's so dangerous is a lot of guys have like a good like switch kick or they set up and stuff like that. Next thing you know, that it's almost like a crow cop style of kick. Where next thing you know, that leg is at your head. And so for the guys that were fighting you, like their hand had to be glued to their face because that leg could be on your head at any second.
Yeah, and it's really fast, and I just naturally, you know, always set it up really well. I always threw out my jab and then made them parry that jab, and that leg, that kick was coming right up right after that. And
yeah.
Sometimes it landed. If you notice, I actually landed that on the Korean Zombie like 3 times before the knockout shot came. I think it was the accumulation of all the shots that he took that actually really put him out how it did.
I think he was a victim of that believing your own hype, right? Because I think that when you have a war and you don't get knocked out, you're like, maybe I am a god.
Yeah.
Maybe I can be knocked out.
Maybe I am the zombie.
Maybe I am the zombie. And next thing you know is you start taking a little bit more risk, and then you notice that the crowd responds, so you start putting your hand down a little bit, taking a shot here and there. But no, we're humans, and
That's right.
and that button, you press that control alt delete, and you're going memes.
Yeah, that's
you
right.
know? So
Yeah,
but I think he was a victim of just starting to believe that, and also policing the crowd a little bit, where people wanted to see him take that many shots. And
yeah, he's a great fighter. You can see him evolve even after that fight. Actually, he's gone to his ground game a lot more, which he has a really good ground game, and I always knew that he had a really good ground game going into that fight. But I just knew the style was gonna play into my favor for that fight. So to me, that fight wasn't a big fight for me, honestly. You know, like of course I loved it, loved getting the payday for it.
of course,
you know?
yeah. And the opportunities that came with that victory,
The
right?
opportunities were huge, and that's where I give a lot of credit to Sean Shelby. Also, you know, they'd be like, man, they always match you up with killers, because if you look at the guys I fought, almost every single person was ranked in the top 10 at the time that I fought them. And man, they always give you killers. I liked that, you know. I did. It made me hungry, you know. It made me
like being the underdog.
I always like being the underdog.
But you went a step too far for me, man. That is so crazy. You went as far as looking at the odds of the fight. Because I remember you talking about, I forget which fight it was, and you were the underdog, and you actually repeated what the odds were, and you said, I went and looked at that. He goes, I looked at that for every single fight. So every single fight you go look, and you're like, oh, I'm the underdog this much, huh? Okay,
yeah,
I'm gonna make people some money.
I do. I always look at the odds.
Why? What's the because there's some people that are more focused. Okay, I'm just gonna focus on the fight and cut out the distraction. Whether you're the favorite, whether you're the underdog. For me, I gravitate more towards that, where I don't. You kind of have to prepare for like how many fights you're gonna have, you know. So for me, like entering into the tournament, I don't look at the names, I don't look at the teams. I'm just go, fuck, there's 20 guys in my division. Okay, cool. That's all I need to know. Go do the number, this many fights, prepare for that, then that's it. But you go in there and you look it up. You're like, this, I'm an underdog. This is what the media is saying. This is what the crowd is saying.
Yeah, and
why?
I thrive off of it, man. You know,
do you not find that as a distraction? Does it not distract you, or is it just like
I feel like it motivates me. You know,
the detractors motivate you?
Yeah, it does, because training camp is hard. That's where people think, oh, this guy, he's going out there, he gets paid fat check for
don't understand,
for 5 to 15 minutes, however long the fight goes. They don't understand. It's those hours upon hours upon hours,
and days
and weeks and months and years, and people don't realize that being a professional athlete, not just a mixed martial arts athlete, any kind of athlete, it's a 24-hour-a-day job, 24/7.
And there's expenditure that comes with it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. You have to eat right. You have to sleep right. You have to have your stress levels right. You have to hydrate right. You have to recover right. I mean, these are things that you're doing when you're out of the gym. You need to research your opponent, right? There are some people that do and don't. That's one of those things.
So people have people do it for them, so
Yes.
they can just show up and be the student instead of the analyzer.
Yeah.
Right?
So I like being the underdog, man. So it's hard. Camp is hard. So it just makes me hungry. I've always been counted out. I'm a skinny white boy from Tucson, Arizona, man, and I've always been counted out, and it just motivates me when people count me out, because I love to prove people wrong is what I really like to do. So, and that's why I think I look at the odds.
That is so crazy, man. That's so crazy.
And it fucking pushes me, man.
Yeah. Maybe. Yeah, that's crazy, man. For some people, like I said, it's a distraction. Some people don't look at that. Some people are just like, I'm just going to focus on the fight. They don't look at their phone. But you're there, man, and it motivates you. And it's phenomenal. It shows your mental strength, where you're able to look at these things that for some people might be a distraction, a detractor, and you find that as a fuel. And you go out there and you perform, and you just turn it into. I think one of your biggest qualities is that you fought people that had a very organized form of fighting, and your biggest thing was, if I was coaching a fighter against you, one of the biggest things I would tell that fighter is, don't let him turn it into chaos.
Yes,
that would be the biggest thing.
Yep.
And you just find a way of, I don't know if it was were you a big shit talker when you were in the cage? Did you ever?
So I have a whole different personality, man.
You have to. It's your killer. You have to be a killer.
I do. I know I'm meaner.
Right.
I know the way I grown up, man.
Right.
I know the way I grown up. I know what I've been through, and that's what I call it. I'm hood, man. When I go in there, I G'd up from the feet up, and I just turn into
G'd up from the feet up. Love that.
I turn into a gangster when I get in there, and that's the mentality I have.
Right. Did you talk to your opponents, or was it just your general demeanor that?
Sometimes I do, but it's not that I do it out of like planning on it or any kind of trying to gain a psychological advantage. I just do it for myself.
It's where your mind is. It's
Yeah,
where your mind is. There was
it
this
is.
fight where you were throwing punches and the guy kept backing up, but you kept going like this.
Yeah.
And you see the guy continue to back up, and then you did it like 3 or 4 times, and the guy goes, "Man, fuck this dude." So he plants his feet. And I was like, no, because not that I was rooting against you, but I'm a fan of martial arts. I'm a fan of mixed martial arts. I'm a fan of combat sports. So, and I'm a fan of sports. So a lot of times I'll be watching like a basketball game, and regardless of who's playing, I'll be looking at the mechanics and the games and stuff like that. And you see a certain player start to do something that'll throw off the other team, and that's what I'm interested in. So when you started doing that, I was curious if the guy was going to fall for it. Mm-hmm. And like I said, I think one of your biggest assets was you were a very smart fighter, but you always had that ability to turn it into chaos. And you had fighters that were very organized. It was those guys that cut their pancakes in squares,
Yeah.
And you were the guy that threw it in the blender and just mashed shit up and just eat it with a spoon. And that was the biggest thing. It's like I don't think that it's easy to prepare a fighter to fight you, because we can look at what you do stylistically, where your punches are, where your kicks are, how you stand, takedowns, and everything else. But what you're going to do, what your energy is going to do to the other fighter, it's you can try to mimic it, but until you have George Roop talking shit in front of you, and you see the guy plant his feet, that. So I think that was one of your. I don't know if, like you said, I don't know if it was something that you prepare for in camp, because I think camp is about your punch and combinations and your condition and everything else.
Dialing in that technique during camp.
But that shit talking came in shape. That shit talking was ready.
Yeah, and I actually learned that from Frank Mir. Not the shit talking, but what we call it, turned into a dog fight. And it was another learning experience. My Eddie Wineland fight in the WEC, he was tough, but I just believed. I was like, I'm bigger than this guy. I'm coming down from 55 pounds down to 135, and that guy just beat the dog piss out of me standing up. I mean, still to this day, I feel like he's hit me harder, than anybody else has hit me. I mean, he put me on roller skates a couple times. I mean, it hurt when he hit me, and he beat the crap out of me. And ever since then, it's like, okay, if you start getting kind of out technique, you just turn it into a dog fight. You make it as ugly as possible, and that's
Chael Sonnen does that. Yeah,
Chael Sonnen does.
Chael Sonnen does that, man. In jiu-jitsu, there's a guy, and the same thing. I was watching the commentary. It's Leandro Lowe. He was fighting this big dude, and this dude was dancing with Lowe. Not that he was controlling Lowe, but he was able to lock up Leandro Lowe, to this sequences of techniques. And there's like 2 minutes left, and you could see the frustration in Lowe. And the commentator said this exactly. He goes, "This guy's doing a phenomenal job at keeping Lowe away from being able to create chaos." 2 minutes left. A small little scramble, dude. Lowe went crazy on this dude and caught him with a footlock. But caught him with the footlock out of Lowe coming in and out and chaos. Shit, he did a cartwheel at one point, and this dude didn't know where to put his feet and stuff. And then next thing you know, Lowe grabs that toe and fucking cranks it. And his foot, it's bent like this. It's the nastiest picture you'll ever find. But he was that creating the chaos. But and there's certain fighters that are like that, that thrive on that chaos, and I think that if you can teach a fighter to create chaos but also be orderly in their fighting, man, you have beautiful, beautiful weapon.
Yeah,
man.
If you're able to harness that, that dogfight, type mentality, and if you're able to harness it and keep it, within the realm, I think it is a benefit.
So, your last fight, man, nastiest injury, Anderson Silva style break.
Yep.
Where was this fight? This wasn't in America. This was
South Korea.
South Korea. What was the medical treatment for you over there?
Pretty interesting. I went from the dirtiest, craziest hospital I went to the most beautiful hospital.
In South Korea?
Yeah, in South Korea.
What was the dirtiest like?
It was just dirty, dust everywhere.
Is that the first place that took you after your fight?
Yes, that's the first hospital they took me to.
Were they pumping you with morphine? They had to be, because you had to be in the insane amount of pain.
That's funny you asked that. You know how many painkillers I took throughout my whole career?
You're gonna say none.
0.
Jesus Christ.
Not one. Not after my surgery. Nothing. They gave me painkillers, I believe, in some of my anesthesia, as I woke up from surgery. But that is the only painkillers I've ever took. I've had shoulder surgery, labrum surgery, not one painkiller. With my leg, I don't know if I'd do that again. The recovery was very, very brutal, but it's something I believed in, and I actually believed that you heal quicker when you're actually able to
conscious
of that pain, and you feel that pain. I know it sounds a little weird, but I think that
I get it, man, and it makes sense. Yeah,
I think you're able to heal quicker when you're able to be conscious of that pain and you actually feel that pain. I think your body responds, and it actually helps you heal faster that way. But yeah, no painkillers during that whole time, and honestly, it didn't really hurt at the time because I was just adrenaline like a mofo. What hurt is the tough part is the language barrier in Korea. Right. It's not like you go down to Hermosillo and you can make hi, bye, even hand gestures. Even if you don't know the language, you can get by. Down in Mexico, here, they don't understand the word hi. They don't understand the word bye. They don't understand the word
hand gestures. Right. Yeah.
They don't. It's just very different. The language barrier is so different there. So when they took me to the first hospital, it's a crazy dirty hospital, and it's different there because they don't have health insurance. They have what you call health care, which means there's no nurses. Nurses go there and administer, whatever, do a bandage wrap if they need something like that, but they're not there to wait on you. You're supposed to have a family member there.
Oh, what the?
Yeah, to wait on you, to change, like if you have to go to the bathroom, if you have to, piss in a, in a pot, then
It's a family member.
it's a family member that's supposed to do that, for you. So I have a compound fracture, my bone's sticking out of my leg.
Yeah.
One of the things I remember first at the first hospital, man, is just the language barrier, and they're sent me down for the x-rays, and I could just feel them twisting my, and it was just, oh man, now that was brutal. And then I started to feel the pain. The next day, Road FC, they took me to their own personal hospital. It's like an hour and a half south in Wanju, and it was the most beautiful. I mean, it was like a hotel. I was staying in a hotel. The technology was just, it was different than what you even see here in the United States. Your basic hospitals. It was a very extravagant hospital, and the surgery went well. I have the same kind of surgery that Anderson Silva. They although I damn near broke my ankle, is where my bone popped out. They stuck a rod all the way down. Ugh. They cut my knee open. They just shoved it down, my leg, and kind of helped fuse the bone back together. But I'd already been away for a week. I have a lot of responsibility here in the States, so for me to be away for a week is a long time. I have a big family. I mean, we count on that family when I'm out of town, so I'm always anxious to get back. Well, they wanted me to stay out there another 2 months after my surgery, because you can't fly after such a major surgery.
Correct.
Like that. Man, it was brutal. I pled with them up and down. I think I stayed there like 2 weeks, and then they let me go home, and that was one of the most painful experiences of my life. Just travel home.
Yeah.
It was just absolutely brutal. My foot was just massive, from all the, the travel. It was brutal. It was brutal.
Dude, and it's a major injury, because what year was that?
I'm so bad with time frames. I don't know. I got hit in the head too much, man.
Brain damage. Yeah. But you stopped and trained with us, man, and it was a number of years had gone by, and you had stopped and trained with us, and I know that a couple of years had gone by post that injury, and you were like, hey, I'm still being careful with this foot, man, and that kind of paints a picture, man, of like what a major injury that was. And how do you feel now? Your movement is there, and
I feel great. I still feel it, of course. There's still, like, if I were to do one-legged hops, which I do every day to test it. Right. I feel it right at the break point. You feel that thing. I never knew what people meant when they said, "Oh, it hurts when it's cold out." I feel it now.
Dude, I feel it. Yeah.
I feel my leg when it does get cold, but thankfully I live in the best city in the world where sun shines a lot, man.
Oh, it was so cold, 60, man. Yeah.
But this is the thing too, is I was actually, I had actually started getting ready for another fight. I got ready. I put it behind me. That injury, I started blasting pads. I want to say like 6 months after I actually even broke my leg. Mm-hmm. I worked hard after that. My rehabilitation, I was ready to get back in there, because I was so disappointed, because I knew that was the best performance I was gonna ever have.
Right.
And it was the best camp I had. I actually feel like I had turned a corner as an MMA athlete. Right. For that training camp and for that fight. It was
changed not sparring as much and being smarter.
I focused so much on my drilling and technique, my footwork. I was able to put so much more towards that, because I didn't have to go in the gym and walk away with a fuzzy head after
shoving gum, trying to loosen up the jaw. Yeah. I tell my kids that story, man. Like, like you have your bag where you're going to go practice, and you have your wraps, you have your headgear, you have your mouthpiece, and a pack of gum, right? Because your jaw's locked up. But if you're new to the sport, everybody, like, if they look at your back, they're like, "What's with the gum?" You're like, "You'll see," And you're driving home, and your jaw's locked, and you're like,
"Yep."
And then hopefully by 30, 40 minutes you can talk. Your jaw is loose enough, from chewing gum. It's crazy, man. So, what happened?
I'm ready for a fight, and then. My next winning formula in life that I knew just kind of landed in my lap for me, man, and my family didn't want me to fight, of course, after that, and let's say this too, is that, it's important to point out is that I'm unlike a lot of other, not only fighters, but MMA athletes, because to be a professional athlete, I mean, baseball players, they make so much money, they don't have to worry about it. But football players, the longevity of their career is usually roughly about 3 years, actually. MMA, people get to the UFC, I made it. You didn't make it, man. Longevity is prosperity, is what it really is.
Right.
And I was with the UFC for almost 10 years, which is impressive to me. And I may have not became a superstar by any means, but what I did do is I lasted for a long time, and I kept a mentality throughout my whole career. It's not about how much you earn; it's about how much you keep. I live a frugal lifestyle. My family and I. I don't put a lot of value into materialistic items, and I've just even evolved more and more, like that over the years.
So you moved on. You started this new career. Are you involved in coaching at all?
Yeah,
Is that something that
I'm not involved in coaching? It's funny because everybody. What you gonna do? What you gonna do?
You're already doing it. You have your own career that it's super intricate, and that takes you away from it. But not interested in passing on the knowledge and the experience.
Yeah, I'm not. It's just it's not my passion. I very much dislike teaching.
Really?
Yeah, I do. And I don't say that in a negative way. It's just
You have to have the right mindset. You have to have patience to walk people through.
Yeah, it would be a lie if I said I enjoyed it. Oh yeah, I love teaching people.
Right.
It's just not the truth. I don't enjoy teaching people martial arts. Never have. I always was willing to give back, though. I always told anybody that let me go to their gym. Hey, if you need me to cover a class, give me a call. I'll run a class for you. Anything comes up. So I've done that kind of stuff. I don't enjoy it though when I do it. But everybody just kind of assumes they're like, so you're gonna open a gym, right? You're gonna open a gym. Like,
It's
hell no, I'm not
dude.
gonna
It's
open a
hard,
gym,
man. It's hard. Your heart. It's you need to have the heart of a teacher, which is very different from having the heart of a competitor. Very, very different.
I agree.
You almost have to put your own dreams on hold to make other people's dreams come true.
100%.
And that is why, for me, there's so many gaps in years between being able to compete. It's because you put so much effort behind the development of your students, not just in competition, but day-to-day practice in their personal life, because they come to you, man. They figured out you're the coach, man. You must have your shit figured out. So let me come to you with my life experiences. And we do have some knowledge. We've been on the road for many years, so we might have something to offer to that person. But at the same time, it's like, if you're involved in the development of others, your personal goals, meaning I want to go compete, I want to go fight, those are placed on hold. So last year I was able to, I kind of looked around. I was like, all right, I'm going to go do it. So I did it, and I had a blast. This year, dude, it's impossible. I'm looking at my schedule, and I'm looking at what my students are doing. There's no room for me to develop as a fighter because I can't ignore them. I can't ignore it. That's something they don't understand, is for you to develop as a fighter, I can't worry about you doing the wrong thing. I can't worry about you doing the drill wrong or something like that. And people deserve that. They deserve your undivided attention. But you don't want your kids to fight either.
Yeah, I don't, man. Yeah.
So you have 5 kids. What's the oldest?
We have twins that are 12.
Okay.
A boy and a girl. And then we have Peyton, who is, I know everybody thinks their kid is smart, but this is a 7-year-old that knows how to code.
Jesus Christ, man.
He's smart, man.
Yeah.
when I say he's a genius, I mean he's a genius, and he's a really smart kid, academically and in that kind of role. We have a 4-year-old named Piper. She is awesome. And then we have a little boy. He's going on 3, and he's my favorite out of all of them.
The 3-year-old.
Yeah.
They're so wild, especially at that age, man. They're so wild.
Yeah, and he actually loves me, man. Everybody else, they love Grammy, they love Mommy. No,
You're my guy.
He loves me.
Yeah, you're my guy, man.
He's like, oh, you come pick me up from Grammy's house? Oh, let me run to Dad. I love that little boy, man. He's awesome. He's a lot of fun. And I love all my kids, of course.
Too late. Now the kids are gonna be like, man, Dad, what the fuck?
Oh, I keep
We're your oldest.
I keep it real with them
Yeah.
too. So
You're my least favorite, just so you know.
just so you know, you're my least favorite this week.
This week. Oh, dude, that is so phenomenal. So what happens when, because we were talking about like what would we let our kids do, and people romanticize the sacrifices of fighting or competition or playing whatever sports. I'm very honest with my kids. Like, this are my injuries. These are my limitations. My arm doesn't go that way, or stuff like that, So that's why I would never let my kids play football.
Yeah.
Growing up, because I think you start playing certain sports out of like a social interaction. My buddy Mark is doing it. I don't give a fuck about your buddy Mark.
Yeah.
You're my son. Your mental health is and your physical health is my concern. If they want to spoon feed Mark when he's 30,
Yeah.
by all means, I'm gonna take care of you.
Right.
So
That's the job of being a parent, making those tough decisions, for them too.
Right. Yeah. So I never let them play football, and I never let them be involved in any kind of striking where they would start getting hit when they were little. Now we can start doing some striking. We can, we're doing a lot of wrestling and jiu-jitsu, and they're phenomenal competitors. But your kids will have that ability to at some point, like, look at that scrapping, and you might inspire one of them to say, Dad, I want to do this. How do you react to that?
Yeah, I actually totally anticipate that to happen.
With a 3-year-old.
Definitely with the 3-year-old. His name's Parker, and definitely with Piper, the 4-year-old. She's just savage,
Yeah.
So I do anticipate that kind of stuff with them, and I will support them if they decide to do it. I will let them. I won't let them go and spar, and I won't let them play contact football until they're a certain age as well, because your brain doesn't fully develop until you're 24 years old, and then you're still growing too.
And even then, man, the hits that this guys take
Of course,
is just,
man.
yeah.
Of course, yeah. So I mean, if they choose that to be their passion, I'll support them. I'll help them in any way I can. But it doesn't mean that's what I want for them.
Right. But you'll be the supportive role in there.
Yeah, if they say, "Hey, I want to go join Taekwondo. I want to go do Jiu-Jitsu. I want to join the wrestling team," I'll support it. No doubt about that. There's no doubt that I will support them in what they decide to do. But that's not what I want. That's not what I'll push. I rather push golfing classes.
Right. Dancing. Yeah.
Stuff like that. Like that's what I'll really push towards. I know what it takes, man, to really compete at the highest level. I know the disappointments too, that come with losses. It's a
heartbreak, man. It's a fucking heartbreak.
And
people don't understand the what it does, man. Like when you have to go home and like when you go home and you realize that your personal life has been imposed. That you've stepped away from everything that's going on with your wife, with your kids, with your friends at home
for 2 to 3 months.
And
yeah.
To credit to our loved ones, like you come home and your wife has stepped up and handled all these things on top of being, working or being a mother and stuff. But you come home and it's like, oh fuck, man. I've always felt guilty stepping out to compete and like come home and knowing that my wife and kids have stepped up to manage things at home, and you're like, fuck, man, came back in the middle.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but it's rough. What do you tell the kids today, man? Like young kid today comes up to you and says, I want to be a fighter.
Yeah, I tell them the main thing that if you want to be a fighter, I say go for it. Of course, I would always support them in doing that, but I'd let them know that with that one sentence, you know how many actions have to be behind you just saying you want to be a fighter? Do you know how many reps you have to do of a double leg? Do you know how many reps of an armbar you have to do? You know how many jabs you have to throw? Do you know how much work it actually takes? It's the same thing. I want to be a doctor when I grow up. I want to be a dentist when I grow up. Do you know how many millions of actions that takes just to actually do that? So I think people, they say, yeah, I want to be a fighter. I let them know consistency. I think consistency is the number one thing for anybody that wants to be a professional fighter. That they have to be in the gym all the time, because there's other people that are in the gym all the time as well. And that's something that drove me, just knowing that there's people in the gym working. And that's kind of one of my thought philosophies is I never want to be outworked. I never want to know that I didn't give it everything I have. So my advice to younger people would just to be, let them know you have to be consistent. It's a long road before you're really good, and you're never going to master it. Never become complacent. Becoming complacent, thinking that you made it, is one of the worst mistakes any professional athlete can ever make, I think, because then I made it, I'm rich, bitch, It's not the way it is, man. There's always that youngster that's
coming after you.
Yeah, they're ready to, you were saying it is, I love the analogy that that you said. I'm going to start using it. Once you actually get to, the UFC, they're looking at this guy that's 5 years younger than you, that's been training. He's coming in to replace you already, and I really believe that. So one of the other biggest advice that I think to give people is to let them know where to hold their value. I think it's so important, man. I think people, you don't hold your value is, I'm a UFC fighter. I walk around, oh hey, you're a UFC fighter. People come up and they ask me, who are you? What do you do? Well, I'm a father and I'm a husband, and that's what I do. Oh yeah, I fight for the UFC too.
Right.
Yeah. But that's not who I am, So I hold my value in the right places, and I think it's really important because it's a very small window in your life that you're able to compete as a professional athlete of any kind, and I like to stress that, because it doesn't matter if you're going to be a UFC fighter or a basketball player, a football player. It's a very small window in your life. People will forget about you eventually.
Right.
Those people are not going to be at your funeral. They ain't going to be around there. They're not going to be sitting around after you're after you're gone. They're not going to be sitting around the Christmas tree talking about you.
Right.
That's going to be your family. They're going to be like, oh man, that George, the way he gave back, what he did.
Nobody. I heard this, and it was so powerful, man. And one thing they talked about is, when the people talk about a person, they don't talk about the medals or the championships. They talk about the kind of person that he or she was, and that is so true, man. At the end of the day, the ones that stay behind is your loved ones, who you've made your family, and number two, the things that matter the most is how you treated people.
Yeah.
Which I want to end this real quick with your experience with Sean Tompkins, because everything that you read about this guy, number one, we're talking about his knowledge as an instructor, as a coach, but the article will contain 2 paragraphs on the coach that he was, but it's more about the human being that he was. What made this guy such an amazing coach?
I think he was passionate about it. I think that's what he was good at. We kind of talked about it. He wasn't a great fighter.
He wasn't, but he had this Jedi mindset, man, where he broke things apart and just really overanalyze. Like I talk about, like, when I study jiu-jitsu, I'll watch a 5-second clip for probably like 2 hours. Like this little 5 seconds right here. I'll watch the left foot, rewind it. Then I'm done with the left foot. I understand that. Then let me watch what he did with the right hand. Then I'll same thing. I'll watch it, rewind it. And, my wife leaves, she comes back, and it's like, 2 hours later, and I'm still watching the same 10, 15 seconds, whatever it is. And I think he had that. He had that ability of breaking shit down. But he did it live. He did it in person. Back in the day, there was no DVR or anything like that. He was just able to watch something and go, huh, yeah.
And he was passionate, man. I think it goes. He knew that that's what he wanted to do. It's kind of like, I don't want to teach, so I don't think I'd be good at it. Honestly, I might be good at it for an hour at a time, but not for a longevity.
Right.
Of it. And I think that what made him a great coach is he was passionate and he cared, man. He really did. He cared, and he had a lot of people to take care of. So that was a lot of work for him,
And that was a hard loss, man. He passed away at 36, 37.
Yeah.
Just heart attack,
man.
out of nowhere.
Yeah, I feel so bad for his family. Mark Hominick, who was one of my opponents, man, him and Sam Stout, they're just so close, man. Those guys were inseparable, you know, it's sad because I was able to grow close with them. So, and you never like seeing somebody, you know, pass away at a young age, man. I mean, that's, if I could live forever, I would hope to, man. You know?
Oh shit, I don't know. Have you seen 80? It's not a good one.
No, I haven't. No, but I would want to live forever. You know? I mean, that's
if you see me walking down the street and I've made it to 80 something, take me out, dude. There's a note in my pocket that gives you full permission, by all means. Flamethrower, car. Fuck, man, I don't want to be here past that.
I'm hoping that technology comes along, man, where we can.
Oh, now you're talking.
you
Like,
know,
so if you put me like an Iron Man's body, yeah, dude, I'll
yeah,
fucking fly
man,
everywhere.
yes.
But
there's like stem cell, you know, a lot of stem cell research going on.
Right,
you know,
yeah.
they're doing like hip replacements with that stuff now in
all
Australia.
joking
so.
aside, man, like old age is not what it used to look like, man.
No,
Like
yeah.
for me, man, like my idea of growing up old is it just keeps changing with the time. Because for me, like I grew up where 40 was, you peaked 20 years ago, and that was it. Like you were 20 and now your body's starting to decline. Where like, you know, like we just went to train with Frangina with my instructor, man, and he's pushing, you know, later years of 40, starting to get to that 50. And every once in a while, man, like I don't know, you've been rolling with somebody and stuff, and you're just so mesmerized by the mastery they have over their craft, and you know, and you're like, oh, man, watch him shut down open guard, and watch how he starts. Oh shit, it's my guard that he's passing. Fuck, let me start fighting. But he's pushing that age, but with diet, with proper food, you know, with proper, you know, taking care of yourself, right supplementation.
Yeah.
The 50 is possible, like the new 25.
Yeah.
You know, where
Yeah,
but if you're willing to do it, if you're willing to not eat fucking Five Guys, you know, God bless Five Guys, like we go there every once in a while, but when you make that the base of your diet, man, it's not a good one.
That's right, man. It's a lifestyle, you know. It definitely is.
Yeah. So phenomenal, dude. Thank you so much for doing this, man. Yeah. I wanna end this with, like, you talk about like coaching, and you talked about like not being good at it and stuff, but you remind me a lot of a mutual friend of ours, Nick Stone.
Oh, I like Nick. I ran into him the other day too.
Dude, Nick Stone is fucking phenomenal, dude. Nick Stone was the kind of guy that he walked into a room, and is the kind of guy that he walks into a room and immediately the room is energized. It's just this electricity in the air where if you were going to have a good practice, now we're just going to go through fucking walls, you know? But he's like that about life. Like if we're going to read a book, I'm going to read the shit out of this book because Nick is here. And Nick will stop by every once in a while and jump into a class and teach like a kid's class or something like that. And these are kids that have never met him in their life. And next thing you know, these kids are crazy for him, you know? So I really hope that people, like through this podcast, you know, but also that through you stopping by your gym every once in a while, man, I think that people would benefit from just being able to sit down with you and just pick your brain and just be energized, man. Because like I said, you walk into the room and you have that same quality that Nick does, where you're like, you walk in and you're like, oh, let's fucking do this, you know? So get back in there, man. Get back in there.
Thank you.
Hang out with the room with the full of kids. Stop by a wrestling practice. I'd love to see these kids like feed off your energy and your vibe, man. So
cool.
thank you, man.